On November 14th, 1973, Karen Bellamy walked through the front doors of Eisenhower High School in Cardington, Ohio. She was carrying a brown paper lunch sack and a geometry textbook. She waved to the attendance monitor, signed the late arrival sheet at 8:47 a.m., and turned left toward her homeroom. Her signature is still there, in the ledger. Her handwriting was careful, precise. That was the last verified record of Karen Bellamy. The school district ruled her a voluntary dropout 3 days later, case closed before it opened. But they never explained why her name was whited out of the yearbook proofs. They never explained why the photography teacher resigned the same week. And they never explained why Karen Bellamy's senior portrait shows an empty chair. 43 years later, a documentary researcher named Ellen Marsh sat in the basement of the Morrow County Historical Society, surrounded by cardboard boxes labeled Eisenhower High, 1970 to 1975. She was 51 years old, with reading glasses on a chain and a methodical approach to institutional records. Her specialty was collective false memory, how entire communities could remember events that never happened, or forget events that did. The Bellamy case had come to her through a podcast listener who'd grown up in Cardington. The listener remembered Karen, remembered her clearly, but when she'd looked for Karen in her old yearbook, the girl wasn't there. Ellen opened the first box and began photographing enrollment cards, one by one. The enrollment cards told a simple story. Karen Louise Bellamy, born March 3, 1956. Enrolled at Eisenhower High, September 1971. Father, Robert Bellamy. Occupation listed as sales. Mother, Diane Bellamy, homemaker. Home address, 1847 County Road 12. Emergency contact, same. Ellen photographed the card, then checked the 1972 yearbook. Karen was there, sophomore class, row 3. Brown hair, slight smile, unremarkable. She checked the 1973 yearbook, junior class. Karen was there again, same position in the alphabet, between Bell and Bennett. She checked the 1974 yearbook, senior class. The space between Bell and Bennett was empty. No explanation. No in memoriam. Just gone. Ellen drove to Cardington the following Tuesday. The town sat in the flat farmland of central Ohio, population 1,847, unchanged since the 1970 census. Eisenhower High had closed in 1994, consolidated into a regional district. The building now housed a furniture warehouse. She parked in what had been the student lot and walked the perimeter, noting where the windows were bricked up, where the gymnasium doors were welded shut. The marquee still read, Eisenhower High, home of the pioneers. The letters faded, but legible. A man in coveralls watched her from a loading dock. Ellen waved. He didn't wave back. The Cardington Public Library had one shelf of local history and a microfiche reader that hadn't been serviced since 1989. Ellen found the Morrow County Sentinel archives and began scrolling through November 1973. Car accidents, church suppers, a barn fire outside Mount Gilead. No mention of Karen Bellamy. No missing persons report. No concerned parents quoted in any article. She scrolled back to September, then forward to December. Nothing. She asked the librarian, a woman in her 70s with a name tag that read Dorothy.
I'm researching a student who attended Eisenhower High in 1973. Karen Bellamy. Does that name mean anything to you?
Dorothy's hand paused over her card catalog.
I'm afraid I don't recall anyone by that name.
Ellen had conducted enough interviews to recognize a non-answer. Dorothy hadn't said Karen didn't exist. She'd said she didn't recall her. The distinction mattered. Ellen thanked her and drove to 1847 County Road 12. The address was a soybean field. No house, no foundation, no mailbox. She checked her notes, checked the enrollment card photograph on her phone. The address was correct. She pulled over and walked the edge of the field, looking for any sign of a former residence. The soybeans were ankle-high, the soil dark and rich. A farmer on a tractor watched her from 3 fields over. The Morrow County Recorder's Office had property records going back to 1848. Ellen requested the deed history for 1847 County Road 12. The clerk, a tired-looking woman with bifocals, brought her a manila folder after 20 minutes.
That parcel's been agricultural since 1952. Owned by the Hoffman family. No residential structures on record. There was never a house there. Not even a tenant dwelling. According to this, no. Just farmland.
Ellen photographed the deed. The Bellamy enrollment card listed an address that had never existed. Either Karen's family had lied to the school, or the school had created a false record. Either way, someone had been careful. Ellen returned to the Historical Society and pulled the school board minutes from 1973 to 1974. The meetings were recorded in longhand by the board's secretary, a woman named Gladys Pemberton. November 1973 showed routine business, budget approvals, bus route changes, a proposal to add a second vending machine to the cafeteria. No mention of any student withdrawal, voluntary or otherwise. December was the same. January 1974 contained one anomaly, a closed session, no minutes recorded, attendees listed only as board members and council. The next regular meeting resumed as if nothing had happened. Ellen found the podcast listener who'd started this investigation. Her name was Cheryl Holbrook, née Patterson, class of 1974. She lived in Columbus now, worked as a dental hygienist. They met at a Panera Bread on a Saturday afternoon.
I sat behind her in American history. Mr. Gunther's class, 3rd period. She always wore this yellow cardigan. You're certain it was Karen Bellamy? I'm certain it was Karen. We weren't friends exactly, but I knew her. When I looked for her in the yearbook last year, it was like she'd been erased. Did you ever ask anyone about her? Teachers? Other classmates?
Cheryl's coffee had gone cold. She hadn't touched it.
I mentioned it to a few people at our 40th reunion. Nobody remembered her. Not one person.
Ellen asked Cheryl about the photography teacher.
Mr. Vance. Leonard Vance. He ran the yearbook committee and the darkroom. Taught photography as an elective. Do you know why he resigned? I didn't even know he had resigned. 1 week he was there. Next week, we had a substitute. The substitute stayed the rest of the year. Did Mr. Vance ever interact with Karen? Specifically,
Cheryl was quiet for a long moment, her hands wrapped around the cold coffee cup.
Karen was on the yearbook committee. She was in the darkroom a lot. I remember thinking it was strange, a girl spending so much time in there. Strange how? I don't know. It just was. Nobody talked about it.
Leonard Vance had died in 1991, according to the Ohio Death Index. Ellen found his obituary in the Mount Gilead Gazette. He'd spent his final years as a groundskeeper at a church camp in Knox County. Never married, no children. The obituary mentioned his service in Korea, but nothing about his teaching career. She tracked down his last known address, a room he'd rented from a family named Crutchfield. The Crutchfields still lived there, though the parents had passed. Their son Gerald, now 68, answered the door.
Vance? Yeah, he rented our back room for about 6 years before he died. Quiet man, kept to himself.
Did he ever talk about his time as a teacher?
Never mentioned it once.
Gerald Crutchfield invited Ellen inside. The house smelled like wood smoke and old newspapers. He led her to the back room where Vance had lived.
We cleared most of his things after he passed, donated what we could, but there was one box nobody wanted.
He pulled a cardboard box from a closet shelf. Inside were photography supplies, chemical bottles, developing trays, a timer, and beneath those, a stack of contact sheets.
Never could figure out what to do with those. Didn't seem right to throw them away.
Ellen lifted the contact sheets carefully. Rows of tiny portraits. High school students. Black and white. Each frame numbered. She recognized the format immediately. These were yearbook proofs. Ellen photographed every contact sheet before leaving. That night, in her motel room in Mount Gilead, she examined them on her laptop. The proofs were dated September 1973, the beginning of the school year. She found the junior class section and scanned the faces alphabetically. Bell, Rebecca. Bellamy, Karen. Bennett, Thomas. Karen was there, in the proofs. Third row, fourth from the left. The same unremarkable face from the 1972 and 1973 yearbooks. But on this proof, someone had drawn a small X in grease pencil over Karen's frame. Not whited out, not removed, just marked. The next morning, Ellen called the Morrow County School District Central Office. She asked for access to historical personnel files.
Personnel files from that era would be archived, if they exist at all. You'd need a formal records request.
I'm specifically interested in Leonard Vance, who taught at Eisenhower High until November 1973.
There was a pause on the line. Ellen could hear typing.
I'm not showing any record of a Leonard Vance in our system.
He taught photography. He's listed in the 1972 and 1973 yearbooks.
Ma'am, our digital records only go back to 1985. Anything before that would be in physical storage, and I'm afraid we don't have the staff to search through decades of paper files.
Ellen spent the next 2 weeks tracking down former Eisenhower High students from the class of 1974. Of the 147 graduates listed in the yearbook, she located current addresses for 89. She sent letters to all of them, explaining her research and asking if they remembered Karen Bellamy. 23 responded. 19 said they didn't remember anyone by that name. 3 said the name sounded familiar, but they couldn't place it. One letter came back with a single word written across her original inquiry. Stop. The stop letter had no return address. The postmark was Columbus. Ellen examined the handwriting. Block letters, heavy pressure, masculine. She photographed it and continued her research. The Historical Society had one more archive she hadn't examined. The Cardington Police Department records from 1970 to 1980, donated after the department merged with the county sheriff's office in 1998. She requested the box and found it contained mostly traffic citations and noise complaints. But tucked between 2 folders of parking violations was a single incident report dated November 16, 1973. 2 days after Karen's last verified appearance, the incident report was brief. November 16, 1973, 11:47 p.m. Officer Dale Furman responded to a call about a suspicious vehicle parked behind Eisenhower High School. Upon arrival, found no vehicle present. Noted side door to gymnasium propped open with a brick. Entered building, found photography classroom lights on, darkroom door locked from inside. Knocked, received no response. Principal Harold Gunther arrived at 12:15 a.m., unlocked darkroom with master key. Room was empty, no signs of disturbance. Officer Furman noted chemical smell consistent with photo developing. Case closed, no further action. Ellen read the report 3 times. The photography teacher had resigned that same week. The darkroom had been locked from the inside, and the room was empty. Ellen found Officer Dale Furman in a nursing home in Fredericktown. He was 89 years old, wheelchair-bound, but his mind was clear. She brought him a box of cookies and explained her research.
The Eisenhower call. I remember it. One of those things that never sat right. What do you mean? The principal, Gunther, he got there too fast. I'd barely radioed dispatch when he showed up, like he'd been waiting. Waiting for what?
Furman's hand shook as he reached for a cookie.
I don't know, but when he unlocked that dark room, he didn't seem surprised it was empty. He seemed relieved.
Ellen asked about the photography teacher.
Vance. He was gone by the time I got there. Gunter said he'd been let go earlier that week. Personal reasons, he said. Did you ever see Vance again? After that night? Once. Maybe a year later. He was pumping gas at the Sohio station outside Mount Gilead. I nodded at him. He looked right through me. What about a student named Karen Bellamy? Did that name ever come up?
Furman's eyes narrowed.
No. But I remember Gunter's wife came to the station the next day, filed a missing persons report on her niece. Young girl, 16 or 17. I took the report myself. 2 days later, Gunter came in and withdrew it. Said the girl had turned up at a relative's house in Indiana.
Harold Gunther had been principal of Eisenhower High from 1968 to 1982. He'd died in 2003, according to the obituary Ellen found in the Mount Gilead Gazette. Survived by his wife Marion and 2 sons. One son, Thomas Gunther, was listed as a Columbus attorney. Ellen called his office.
Gunther and Associates. How may I direct your call?
I'm trying to reach Thomas Gunther regarding a historical research project about Eisenhower High School.
Please hold.
Ellen waited 4 minutes. When the receptionist returned, her tone had changed.
Mr. Gunther is not available. He's asked me to inform you that any inquiries about Eisenhower High School should be directed to the Morrow County School District.
Ellen drove to Columbus the next day. Thomas Gunther's office was in a glass tower on North High Street. She didn't call ahead. The receptionist, a young woman in a blazer, looked up as Ellen entered.
Can I help you?
I'd like to speak with Mr. Gunther. It's regarding his father.
Do you have an appointment?
No, but I think he'll want to see me. My name is Ellen Marsh. I'm researching the disappearance of Karen Bellamy.
The receptionist's face went carefully blank. She picked up her phone and spoke quietly. 30 seconds later, a door opened. Thomas Gunther was 62, silver-haired, wearing a suit that cost more than Ellen's car.
Ms. Marsh, my office, now.
Gunther's office overlooked the city. He didn't offer Ellen a seat. He stood behind his desk, arms crossed.
I'm going to say this once. Karen Bellamy was my cousin. She ran away from home in November 1973. She was found safe in Indiana 2 weeks later. She asked not to be contacted by anyone from Cardington. That's the end of the story.
Then why isn't she in the 1974 yearbook?
Because she didn't finish the school year. She transferred.
To where?
Gunther's jaw tightened.
I don't recall. It was 40 years ago.
Do you recall why your father arrived at the school within 30 minutes of a police call at midnight?
The room went very still.
I think you should leave now, Ms. Marsh.
Ellen didn't leave. She pulled a photograph from her bag, the contact sheet showing Karen's marked portrait.
This was in Leonard Vance's belongings. Someone marked Karen's picture before the yearbook was printed. Why would they do that if she simply transferred?
I have no idea what Vance did or didn't do. He was dismissed for conduct unbecoming a teacher. That's all I know.
What conduct?
I was 15 years old. They didn't share details with children.
But your mother filed a missing persons report and then withdrew it.
Gunther's hand moved toward his phone.
I'm calling security. You have 30 seconds.
One more question. Is Karen still alive?
His finger hovered over the button. He didn't press it.
I don't know.
Ellen left the building before security arrived. In her car, she made notes. Thomas Gunther had confirmed 3 things. Karen was his cousin. His mother had filed and withdrawn a missing persons report. And he didn't know if Karen was still alive. That last admission was the most telling. If Karen had simply transferred and lived a normal life, her cousin would know. She pulled out her phone and searched for Karen Bellamy in Indiana. The search returned nothing useful. Too common a name, too many possibilities. But she tried another search. Marion Gunther, Cardington, Ohio. The principal's wife, Karen's aunt. She found an address in Fredericktown. Marion Gunther was still alive. Marion Gunther lived in an assisted living facility called Maple Grove. She was 91 years old. Ellen signed in at the front desk as a family friend.
I don't have many visitors. My sons are busy.
I'm researching the history of Eisenhower High School. Your husband was principal there.
Harold. Yes, he gave that school everything. It killed him in the end. The stress.
Mrs. Gunther, I need to ask you about Karen Bellamy.
The old woman's hand went to her throat, touching a small gold cross.
Karen, my sister's girl.
Yes. Do you know what happened to her?
She went away. They sent her somewhere she could get better.
Better from what?
Marion's eyes drifted to the window.
From the trouble. The photographs.
Ellen leaned forward carefully.
What photographs, Mrs. Gunther?
The ones Leonard took. In the dark room. Harold found them.
What kind of photographs?
Marion's face crumpled. 43 years hadn't dulled the shame.
The kind a man shouldn't take of a 16-year-old girl. Harold destroyed them all. Every last one. And then he made sure Karen was taken care of.
Taken care of how?
Sent to a home. One of those places for troubled girls. In Indiana. Her mother couldn't cope. My sister was fragile.
What was the name of the home?
Marion shook her head slowly.
I don't remember. Harold handled everything. He was protecting the family.
Ellen drove back to her motel and searched for homes for troubled girls in Indiana, 1973. The terminology was different then. Reform schools, homes for wayward girls, state-run facilities that had since closed, their records sealed or destroyed. She found 3 possibilities within driving distance of Cardington. The Marion County Girls' Home, closed, 1981. The Sisters of Mercy residence in Fort Wayne, closed, 1978. And the Lighthouse School in Anderson, converted to a drug rehabilitation center in 1992. Each would require separate records requests, separate bureaucratic hurdles, but one name kept appearing in her searches: Dr. Franklin Reese, a psychiatrist who had served as consulting physician to all 3 facilities. He had testified before the Indiana legislature in 1976 about conditions in youth homes. He was still alive, living in Indianapolis. Dr. Franklin Reese agreed to meet Ellen at his home in Indianapolis. He was 84, retired, living alone in a craftsman bungalow near Butler University. His living room was filled with books.
Those homes were nightmares. I tried to improve conditions, but the system was designed to forget those girls existed.
I'm looking for a specific girl. Karen Bellamy. She would have been admitted in November 1973 from Morrow County, Ohio.
The name doesn't ring a bell, but I saw hundreds of girls over the years.
She was sent there after a photography teacher at her school took inappropriate pictures of her. The family wanted it kept quiet.
Reese set down his coffee cup slowly.
Ah, one of those cases. The girls sent away to protect someone else's reputation.
Dr. Reese went to his study and returned with a box of files.
I kept copies of certain cases, the ones that bothered me most. If your girl was sent to one of those facilities, she might be here.
Ellen watched as he sorted through yellowed papers. It took 20 minutes. Then his hand stopped.
Karen Louise Bellamy. Admitted to the Sisters of Mercy residence, Fort Wayne, Indiana, November 19, 1973. Transferred from a hospital in Marion, Ohio.
A hospital?
She was brought in for observation after a suicide attempt. Overdose. The hospital transferred her to Sisters of Mercy once she was stable. Diagnosis: hysteria with moral deficiency.
Ellen felt her stomach turn. That diagnosis. a label used to silence girls who'd been abused.
She was 16 years old.
Ellen photographed the file. Karen had been released from Sisters of Mercy in June 1974, 2 weeks after her 18th birthday. The discharge notes were minimal. Patient improved. Released to family supervision. No forwarding address.
What happened to girls after they left these places?
Most fell through the cracks. No support, no resources. Many ended up on the streets. Some went home to families that didn't want them. A few got lucky, found jobs, built lives. But the system wasn't designed to help them succeed. It was designed to make them disappear.
Ellen stared at the discharge date. June 8th, 1974. Karen Bellamy had turned 18, walked out of a reform home in Fort Wayne, and vanished. 50 years ago.
If you find her, Ms. Marsh, I hope she's one of the lucky ones.
Ellen returned to Cardington with a clearer picture. Karen Bellamy had been photographed by her teacher, Leonard Vance. When the pictures were discovered, the family had sent Karen away, not to protect her, but to protect themselves from scandal. The school had erased her from the yearbook. The police report had been buried. The photography teacher had been quietly dismissed. Everyone had been protected except Karen. But Ellen still didn't know what had happened to her after June 1974. She needed to find someone who'd known Karen personally, not family, not administrators, a friend. She went back to Cheryl Holbrook's letter. Cheryl had mentioned sitting behind Karen in American history. She'd mentioned the yellow cardigan. Those were the details of someone who'd paid attention. Ellen called Cheryl and asked if they could meet again. This time, she came with specific questions.
You said Karen was on the yearbook committee. Did she ever talk about Mr. Vance? She said he was teaching her about photography, exposure, composition. She seemed excited about it at first. Then she stopped talking about it. By October, she seemed different, jumpy. She missed a lot of school. Did you ever see her with Mr. Vance?
Cheryl was quiet for a long moment.
Once, after school. I was walking to the bus and I saw them through the dark-room window. He had his hand on her shoulder. She was crying. Did you tell anyone? No. I was 16. I didn't understand what I was seeing.
Ellen asked the question she'd been building toward.
Cheryl, did Karen have any close friends? Someone she might have trusted? Someone she might have contacted after she left? There was one girl, Linda Marsh. They ate lunch together most days.
Ellen wrote down the name.
Do you know what happened to Linda? I think she moved to Cleveland after graduation. I haven't thought about her in years.
Ellen searched the name on her phone. Linda Marsh, Cleveland, class of 1974. She found a Linda Marsh Kowalski listed in Parma Heights, a suburb south of the city. The age was right.
I need to make a trip to Cleveland. Why are you doing this? After all this time?
Ellen looked up from her phone.
Because everyone agreed to forget her. And that's not the same as letting go.
Linda Marsh Kowalski lived in a small ranch house with a chain-link fence and a plastic flamingo in the yard. She was 61, a retired cafeteria worker, and she recognized Karen's name immediately.
Karen. God, I haven't heard that name in decades.
You were friends?
We sat together at lunch. She was shy. I was shy. It worked.
Do you know what happened to her?
Linda led Ellen into a living room cluttered with grandchildren's toys. She sat heavily on a plaid couch.
She called me once. After she got out of that place in Fort Wayne. Summer of '74.
What did she say?
She said she was okay. She was staying with someone in Toledo. She asked me not to tell anyone she'd called.
Did she say who she was staying with?
A man. Older. She said he was helping her.
Ellen pressed carefully.
Did Karen ever contact you again after that call?
No. I tried to find her once, years later. Looked in the phone book, asked around. Nothing. It's like she just ceased to exist.
Mrs. Kowalski, I've been researching what happened to Karen. The photography teacher, the photographs, the reform home. Did Karen ever tell you about any of that?
Linda's face went pale.
She told me about the pictures. The last week before she disappeared. She was scared. She said Mr. Vance had copies, and he was threatening to show them to people if she told anyone what he'd done.
What had he done?
She wouldn't say exactly, but I could guess. We all could.
Ellen waited.
The worst part? Her own uncle was the principal, and he chose to protect the school instead of her.
Ellen returned to her motel room that night and laid out everything she'd gathered. The enrollment card with the false address, the contact sheet with the marked portrait, the police report, the medical file, the discharge papers, the witness statements. She recorded her thoughts on her phone, organizing the narrative.
Karen Bellamy was a 16-year-old student at Eisenhower High School. Her photography teacher, Leonard Vance, took explicit photographs of her. When the photographs were discovered, the school principal, who was Karen's uncle, chose to protect the school's reputation. Vance was quietly dismissed. Karen was committed to a psychiatric facility in Indiana after a suicide attempt. The school erased her from the yearbook. The family erased her from the community. And when she was released at 18, she disappeared. The question isn't what happened to Karen Bellamy. The question is whether anyone wanted her to be found.
The next morning, Ellen received a phone call from an unlisted number.
Ms. Marsh, I understand you've been asking about Karen Bellamy.
Who is this?
Someone who knew her. A long time ago.
If you have information, I'd like to meet in person.
That won't be possible. But I can tell you what you want to know. Karen is alive. She lives in Oregon now. She has a different name, a family. She doesn't want to be found.
How do you know this?
Because I'm the one who helped her disappear. I was 23 years old in 1974. I worked at the bus station in Toledo. I saw a girl who looked like she had nowhere to go. I gave her a place to stay until she could figure out what to do next. And then I drove her to Portland.
Ellen gripped the phone.
Why are you telling me this now?
Because I've been following your research. You found things nobody was supposed to find. And you deserve to know that Karen survived. But she doesn't want to relive what happened. She built a life. She has grandchildren. She's at peace.
I need to verify.
You won't. I'm not going to give you her name or location. I'm telling you this so you can stop looking, so you can tell her story without dragging her back into it.
The line went quiet.
Did Karen ever get justice? Did anyone ever face consequences for what was done to her?
Justice? No. Vance died a lonely man. Gunther died with his reputation intact. The school district paid a settlement in 1974. I don't know how much. But nobody went to prison. Nobody apologized. Karen just left. And that was the only justice she could give herself.
Ellen spent 3 more weeks trying to verify the caller's claims. She found evidence of a settlement, the sealed court order from January 1974, referenced in the school board minutes. She found Leonard Vance's death certificate, cardiac arrest, 1991, no family present. She found Harold Gunther's obituary, praising his decades of service to education. She could not find Karen Bellamy. The Social Security Death Index showed no record of her. The Oregon Vital Records Office had no birth, death, or marriage certificate under that name. She had either died under another name, or she was still alive, living the quiet life the caller had described. Ellen had a choice. Continue searching, potentially destroying the peace Karen had built, or stop here, with the truth incomplete, but the story told. Ellen Marsh published her documentary in March 2017. The Morrow County School Board obtained an injunction within 48 hours, citing the 1974 sealed settlement. The court order expanded to include Ellen's interview recordings and research materials. Thomas Gunther's firm represented the school district. The documentary never aired, but Ellen kept her notes. She kept the contact sheets showing Karen's marked portrait. She kept the names of everyone who'd agreed to forget a 16-year-old girl. And somewhere in Oregon, according to a voice on the phone, Karen Bellamy was alive. She had grandchildren. She was at peace. The Eisenhower High Yearbook of 1974 still showed an empty space between Bell and Bennett. The school had tried to erase Karen Bellamy, but Ellen Marsh had found her anyway. Not the girl she'd been, but the woman she'd become. A survivor who'd chosen to disappear on her own terms. Some mysteries end with justice. Some end with silence. This one ended with a blank space in a yearbook and a woman in Oregon who'd earned the right to be forgotten.